Stay tuned, stay tuned. I am here with the coach, John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet, Mr. N. Griffin, and
Yes, sir.
we have a very kind of sad, but in a way, an amazing life of a person that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, the person we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So
should've worn my hat.
the person that we're talking about, the Queen, who is not our Queen, but I'll be honest. Think about this. I was talking to my son today about this, and as you know, she passed. But anybody that's been in power or political figure as long as she has, and really, what bad things have you truly really heard about her? Now, let you and I go run for office, and in 2 minutes, you will hear everything that we've ever done.
Yeah, I've heard people say, "Oh, Coach, you know so much about politics and history. Why don't you go run for office?" And man, that closet's deep. The closet's deep.
The closet's got some dark corners back in there. Oh, so,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
the first thing I think about with her is she was in power, as you want to call it, since Truman and Churchill. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yes. So the other thing is, right at the end of that, yes, they were still alive.
Yeah.
And so, yes, with Truman, yes. And we were lucky enough to go see London this summer, and we got to go to Westminster Abbey. And if you haven't ever been to Westminster Abbey, I've been to many churches and cathedrals in Europe, but this is a cemetery inside this building. It's got all these kings and queens and princesses and people that were big during that time that are either entombed or laid to rest there. You have a church itself. You have a complete historical archives in this building. And this is the place where Philip or Charles? Charles will have his coronation. And the only one that's ever been filmed was Queen Elizabeth right there in it.
Wow.
And it's powerful because if you ever watch the film, it's the only time it's ever been televised because she's been around as queen forever, you know?
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it's an amazing relationship that we actually have with Great Britain anyway, because, you know, I teach U.S. history, and, you know, the big bad King George III we hear about, the reason that we sent him the breakup letter, the Declaration of Independence, is because of these 50-so things that he was doing to us. But in reality, after, you know, the War of 1812 that happened, Great Britain and us have been pretty good friends, and at times great friends. And World War II would not have been the same if there was not the friendship that we had with them and the Soviet Union, of course. But you got to think about with the king, 70 years. Vic.
Yes,
that's unheard of.
And you, like you said, the relationship. They said like 13 presidents, 11 or 13 presidents she'd been through.
Yeah.
And then when 9/11 happened, you know, she was completely supportive, completely different than how we divorced those people back in the George Washington times. You know, she has come to appreciate and respect America as its own and not part of one of their children, you know. And I think she just personifies grace, to be honest.
Definitely. And it's an amazing thing, especially in this day and time with social media, with the divisions that are so easy to have in politics anymore, that it always seemed that no matter what would go on, if it was a family issue that she had with, you know, some of the things that went on from Princess Diana to Charles to even Harry now, but also when it came to some, you know, touchy subject, she always took the high road. There was never any, wow, the Queen said this. It was always like, wow, the Queen said that.
So, Coach, I'd like to say this here. If you take American politics, and right now I don't know anybody that would truly go, I love Biden. I don't know anybody. They'll say, I like Biden because I wear the D and I have to support him and he got the orange man away, but I don't love him. But I don't hear nobody saying, I love Biden. But they do say, there are people that have said they love Trump. There are people who said they love, you know, Obama.
Correct.
There are people who say they love Clinton, and there are people who say they love Bush. But never the whole country. I will say this, when you go to England, at least in the part where I went in London, nobody talked bad about the Queen. The Queen was the Queen. And not that she was a god, but she was a figure that they all respected. You know, and that's just strange because we're not used to that here. We have to be party alive.
Yeah,
you know.
And you know, you have to think about it as we look at the feminism and women's rights here in America, you have to think about the 1970s and 80s. That's when women started getting involved in the politics and getting more and more. Now it's not unusual to have a female senator or even a female vice president. But she set a standard almost to the world that, the Queen was it 1952 is when she took over?
Yep.
And think about what was going on in our world and country with the division or the difference of having women involved in certain roles. We just came out of World War II. Well, thank God the women went to work. Without the women going in the factories and making ammunition and all those things, we would have been in trouble.
She was like a factory line
Absolutely.
mechanic. And then later she would, we have people pass bills in Congress that hold a gun and don't even know which way to hold it. She gets behind the gun and shoots the thing.
Yeah.
For real. She's the real deal.
And this just came to my head. I think I remember, and I hope I'm not wrong, of her riding horses with Reagan one time. Like,
I don't know on that. I know she's ridden horses.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I know Thatcher and Reagan had a relationship at his ranch in California riding horses, but I wanted to, maybe I'll be wrong on that. I'll look that up later. But she got along with everyone.
Yeah.
And it seemed like everyone, when they went to Europe, dignitaries here, that was one of their stops.
So let me throw this out here. Back in the day, when Hillary Clinton was running, I'm not here to bash Hillary, okay, so don't misunderstand it. But when
Who's
she, yeah, the one that never made it, that will never put a 40-something by her or a 50-something. But anyway, when she was running, she was around a bunch of young youth ladies, girls, and they said that they liked, one of them had said they liked a teeny bopper, type musical female artist. So later in the dialogue, they said, well, who's your favorite artist? Who did she say? The teeny bopper, because that got her votes.
Yeah.
Okay, because she couldn't be her own self. Now, the difference is the Queen, and this is one of the coolest things there is she did a video with James Bond for the Olympics.
Yes.
And you know what? It wasn't about her snooting up. It was, he is the James Bond of England, and I am the Queen of England, and we're going to do this thing together.
Yeah.
And it was just badass. Where, I hate to say it, our politicians could never do that because they're too busy focused on the voter instead of just being badass.
Yeah, and one thing that you seen in the last 30 or 40 years, actually really more in like 15, 20 years, where there's new generations are against these type of government type situations of a monarch and a parliament or a queen. And it really, they kind of kept their hands off because she was such a graceful woman.
Yeah.
I do think that in the next few years it's going to be very telling to see how having a Queen of England is now going to be a King of England in the day's time that we have with Charles especially. Because there's still people today that I saw on social media this week says, no, we're not going to consider Camilla so-and-so because what happened with Princess Diana.
Yeah.
Now, I think if she'd have passed 15, 20 years ago, it would have been hard for people to have, Prince Charles now, there would be King Charles. But I do want to see in the next few years, historically how they're going to handle a king of England, as a queen. It kind of softened it, I think.
Yeah.
And now that you have William, which seems like most people really love William,
Yeah.
and I think it's just because he's always been this soft kid that we saw grow up. And so Charles, I heard his statement that he read, after, I think it was yesterday that I heard it, and he was saying that he was going to pretty much, I hate to use the word rule till his death, or until he couldn't anymore.
He's going to stay in power.
Stay in power, but I do think that one bridge to the gap, knowing that William is coming next from some of the younger generations, might soften the blow of the king. God save the king now. You always heard God save the queen. It is a different time we live in, Vet, that is different for people.
So let's just say this about Charles. He's not as charismatic.
No.
And I mean, not everybody is, and he's not. Joe Biden's not charismatic whatsoever. Whatsoever.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Trump in a lot of ways wasn't. And so he's just not charismatic. Does that? And then he has the second notch on his belt is that, when him and Diana did their thing, he came out looking like the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if there was a bad guy. There might not have been a bad guy. It just might have been amicable.
Well, anytime that there's a divorce of any kind, this was just a very public one. And normally in this situation, it was just, because Princess Diana at the time was just looked at as this unbelievable
Yeah.
person that went around the world and helped everybody.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're gonna cheat on that and divorce that,
Yeah.
and you're gonna try to come out with this good persona. Like I said, 15, 20 years ago, if Queen Elizabeth would have passed, there would have been I think it would have been a little bit of different of a handoff to the King Charles now. It's still hard to say.
So many have said that the monarchy will slowly diminish. And do we think it will diminish during Charles's time? That's probably a good question to ask. Let me just say it like this, is when we were in England, we were in the pub and somebody was always, not like every 5 minutes, but at least in each pub, we heard somebody say something like, God protect the Queen, God save the Queen, God love the Queen,
Yeah.
we all love the Queen. You know, at least in each pub, we heard that somewhere in there. Will they say that about the King? You know, that's the question.
I do think the answer to your question, just in my opinion, is I don't think it will diminish all the way, because I believe there's this new generation of William coming. And I think people have seen him as the next in line, and Charles just kind of the one in between. So I think the world sees William and his wife Kate, that's right, Kate and William,
Yeah.
as the next in line. And I hate to say that for Charles, because, you know, it's not that he's a bad guy.
He's waited his time, for
He's
sure.
waited his time. He's 70. I mean, he's 72 or 3 years old. So
Yep.
it's not like, I mean, when your mother, the Queen, lasts, she's 94, 95, something like that.
And I will say this is you know, they tried to catch some of William, and I think also Harry, you know, in their moments of dealing with, as the British would say, that's their mom, you know, and or their grandmom.
Well, there's,
you know, and I mean, I'm quite sure that this is not.
There's a
fun
couple
thing.
pictures that'll never leave your mind if you think about it. JFK Jr. saluting his father in that black and white video with Jackie standing there in all black as they're bringing that, you know, casket by, and also, you know, William and Harry as little kids when that funeral was going on and they were there. It's just certain, you grow up with this compassion, this empathy for those children, even though, you know, they're this Camelot type mentality, you know.
I think everybody respected them
Yes.
during that time. It's just like, man, they lost their mom, you know, and I mean, and Diana was really like, I think everybody will agree she was a good soul.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
So
Anyway, the Queen is gone, and wow.
yeah, and I will say this is, the wife and I, we talked this, is we are definitely going to watch when the coronation happens, even though it doesn't apply to us.
Sure.
It's just something, well, as most people know, might only happen once in a lifetime.
Yeah,
you
and
know, to be honest. So
I did hear yesterday one of the funny moments that Queen Elizabeth did on July the 4th, 1976. She was in America. And they had her speak, and I don't remember, it would be me just blowing words, but she was making a funny joke that she was here and celebrating. You know, like 200 years ago, we wouldn't be celebrating together.
well, that's what they all said, that behind the scenes, all the family has said she is funny. She is really funny. So she would be somebody, you know, I said it about Joe Biden. I don't think he's that much of a president, but wouldn't mind having a beer with him.
Yeah.
Would have loved to have a pint with the Queen. For
Hey,
sure.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'd love to shoot hoops with Obama, and I'd love to be never mind, I want to say it with Clinton. Maybe having a few dollars with Clinton.
You know, you got to watch. He might be on that plane or island. So anyway.
Oh, my goodness.
So, hey, England, hey, wish y'all the best. And,
No doubt.
And we know what you respect of her on it.
We're going to learn to say the King
Yes.
of England.
Yes. So from the coach,
To the vet.
it is time to simply say, stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.